Welcome to the Every Temple podcast, where we believe that every temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a story and a legacy. Every member of their church has their favorite temples, and our quest is to talk about each one. My name is Tony, and my co-host Janelle and I are faithful members and friends who have embarked on this journey together. Latter-day Saints consider each temple to be a house of the Lord and the most sacred places of worship on the earth. The primary purpose of temples is for faithful members of the church to receive peace, inspiration, and spiritual power as they enter into sacred agreements with God in His holy house. Today we are talking about the beautiful Mesa Arizona Temple, and we have a special guest. Unfortunately, Janelle is out of town, but I have invited my good friend Laurie Jayne to come be my co-host for today. Welcome! And can I call you LJ?
Please, that would be great. Yeah, this is a special privilege reserved for you and a few others, but yes.
Can you tell us why you love the Mesa Temple?
Well, as a native of Sholo, Arizona, I was in the Mesa Temple district until I was about 15 or 16 years old when they constructed and dedicated the Snowflake Temple. And so my early days of young womanhood were spent doing, I think it was just once a year that we would go to the Mesa Temple, but there was a pretty, consistent schedule to it. We would go in the wintertime, and well, not always, but I seem to remember, and maybe it was just the difference between climbing into like the cold, wet dark of northern Arizona and stepping out into the like citrus smelling sunshine of the Mesa Temple grounds. That was such a fun experience for me as a teenager to kind of experience that. Anyways, but yeah, so it would be like we would get up at the crack o' dawn and be like all bundled in our parkas and in the solid dark of like a 4:30 wake up call, 5 a.m. leave time. And yeah, it was about 200 miles, so we'd drive about 3 hours, and then we'd go do baptisms at the Mesa Temple. And I don't ever remember having an ancestral name of any kind. We just used what the temple had on file. And then we would almost always go to Poncho's, which any native of Mesa, Arizona is going to know what I'm talking about, which Poncho's is closed down now, sadly, but it was it was like the local all-you-can-eat Mexican food buffet, and if you raise the little Mexican flag on the table, there's a little tiny flagpole on the table, and you'd like raise the flag, and then they would come over, and like a harried, mad-at-you server would come over and be like, what? And you'd be like, I want more rice, please. That's what I always wanted. And then they'd bring me another dish of rice, or I could eat like all the sopapillas I wanted. It was magical. So, temple, Ponchos, and then drive back home and be home like in the dark.
That's amazing. Core memory right there.
Oh yeah.
I've never heard of an all-you-can-eat Mexican place, but it sounds like amazing.
It was amazing. And I'm sure we were like a terrible group to serve. I can't even imagine. I'm sure we were terrible. I'm sure we tipped like almost nothing. Mormons are notoriously cheap at restaurants, partially because we don't drink, but also because like we're like 10%, and servers are like,
we know how to calculate 10%.
Exactly. This is why I do 20. I'm like, okay, 10%, double it. Like a lifetime of training has kicked in, and sometimes I do 30 or 40, but that's it. Anyways, yeah. But I can tell you the first time. So my dad died when I was young, and like I turned 12 in May of whenever that was. Can't remember. But the point is, I turned 12, and then my dad actually went with us down to the Mesa Temple, like drove in the van with us, or maybe we drove our own car, but he actually went so that he could go and do baptisms with me for my first time. And one-on-one time with my dad was quite scarce, honestly. A few of my core memories involve just the fact that we were alone together was so rare, because I grew up in a house full of teenagers as like a straggler and so my parents were just going in a million different directions all the time. But I remember walking into the Mesa Baptistry and like my mind being blown. I have not been to the baptistry in ages. It's been at least 10 years. And so I don't know if in the last renovation they took this down. I hope they didn't, because the Mesa Baptistry is totally full color Art Deco decoration. The tile is green, the flowers are yellow and red around the sides of the font, the oxen are brown. Like it's so amazing, and a full color tile mosaic mural on the wall. Like it's the best. I mean, it's totally like this gorgeous example of the loving care and time and craftsmanship that those work people, I'm assuming they were mostly men, but the workmen from 1925, 26 put in to making it just like a wow experience. I cannot imagine what it was like for these folks, because in 1927, isn't that when the temple was dedicated?
Yeah.
Yeah. In 1927, Phoenix had electricity, just barely. Like the Salt River Project had been generating electricity. Actually, I can't remember what year, but it was right around that time. Side note, my ancestors up in northern Arizona would not get their own power until like 1947.
Oh my gosh.
They had cars before they had electricity. Like that's how remote it was. Anyways, and I have my own core memories, you know, like going into the baptistry and my jaw just being on the floor and walking around and looking at the oxen and being like, I can't believe this, you know, stepping down into the font and being there with my dad and having that experience of having him baptize me, which, you know, was only the second time I'd been in the font with him, you know, and he was dead within 6 months after that, you know, and so just exquisite, amazing. And so, so that's like, the Mesa Temple is important to me because of the long, you know, history that we had. And we felt ownership in the Snowflake Temple when it was dedicated, because it was, you know, because that was our place, you know. And in, I can hardly cram into this time the amount of ownership and pride that we as saints in that area, and in that area, I mean like within a 200-mile radius, maybe 400 miles.
Like all of Arizona.
Yeah, like all of Arizona, but especially northern Arizona, where we're so remote, and that includes saints on native land in Navajo and Hopi land. We had been so far from a temple for so long. The fact that we had one that was so close was like such a gift. And anyways, the Snowflake Temple is all its own thing. I'm going to tentatively
we'll have you
be
back
like,
for that one.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, please invite me back and we'll talk about Snowflake. But until then, the Mesa Temple experience really became one that I looked forward to in a 12-year-old and teenagery way, because like I loved, you know, road tripping with my friends and eating snacks at a gas station and going to ponchos, of course, you know, and
it became a holiday.
It was. It totally was. It was something. It was a very social event, etc. But as an adult going back, I lived in Mesa twice as a married woman, and the first time especially, my husband and I were just so poor. We were so poor. And so there were a couple like date nights on Sunday afternoons when we would go to the Mesa Temple. And one of the times we went on a weekday, we ran into somebody who was a groundskeeper. And I don't know if this is still the case, because it's been forever since I've been back, but there were these old fruit trees all over the Mesa Temple, old citrus trees. And we were picking up like grapefruits and oranges and stuff off of the ground and just like eating them. And there was a guy who came by on his little cart, and he was like, you know, they have citrus pickers that are like down the ramp into the service area in the basement. He's like, they're just on the wall outside of the door. You can come and get them anytime. And we were like, what? And so we would do it. Like, I have a memory of a date night where my husband and I borrowed a tandem bike. I'm not joking. And we biked from our apartment over to the Mesa Temple, picked a bag of oranges and stuff, and then stopped off at Pete's Fish and Chips, another Mesa institution, had fish and chips, and then went back home. It was like a $5 date. And we were like, so
loved
happy. So we felt this ownership in the grounds of the temple in that way. We're as newly minted members of like the Mesa community, we were like this is an extension of us in this way. Like, we own this place. We got permission to go and like pick fruit off of the trees and eat it.
I remember you telling me about that you went and picked the grapefruits, and I was like, that is so magical, or like romantic, I guess, like that you can go to a temple and just like take the fruit.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's so cool.
Thank you. I agree. Like, it was so cool.
That's awesome. Okay, before I jump into the history, let me tell some temple news. Actually, there's no temple news. Here's a temple fun fact.
Yeah, I love it.
Last week we talked about some Angel Moroni facts, and here's another one. The number of temples with an Angel Moroni is 168. The number of temples without an Angel Moroni is 120.
What?
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So there will be more temples without Angel Moroni as we continue. It's going out of practice, and at some point it will that number will be higher than the temples with angel Moroni.
Well,
That's all.
it's fascinating. Yeah, because that reminds me of two other quick memories. Now, these are from my father-in-law, Jim Stradling, who grew up in the neighborhood right around the Mesa Temple. His house was off of Serine Street, which, like I said, is like, I don't know, 2 blocks away maybe. But he would go to the temple often as a young man, and just, things were a little chaotic at home, etc. I'm downplaying this immensely, but anyways, he would go.
Peace?
Yes, exactly. For peace. He would go to the Mesa Temple grounds and just watch the clouds roll by, because there's this bas relief at the top of the Mesa Temple in stone of pioneers, like, pulling hand carts. He would watch it, and he said that as the clouds went by behind the temple, it kind of looked a little bit like they were moving, like they were like crossing the plains across the top. Yeah, and he would the place where he would lie down and kind of watch this was, I think, around the spot where, because the Mesa Temple was constructed before there were HVAC systems, they had these underground tunnels that would pull hot air out of the, like, they would...
like a geothermic.
Yeah, totally. And so you'd have these heat chimneys at the edge of the lot that would release the hot air back into the, like, really high ceilings in the Mesa Temple, especially on the top floor. And so they would, like, pull the hot air out of the building and kind of, like, feed it through this underground tunnel, and then it would escape out these chimneys at the edge of the lot. Just fascinating, the ingenuity. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we ready for some history?
Let's do it.
The first donation toward this temple, or any temple in Arizona, came 33 years before the announcement. In 1887, a woman named Helena Roseberry, a widow from Pima, Arizona, gave $5 an apostle and said, "This is for the house of the Lord in Arizona." Not that it had been reserved or anything, but they kept the money in Salt Lake for that temple in the future.
No way.
So 1887 was before Salt Lake was even done. She's like, I'm putting my good faith in a temple in Arizona. So it was announced in 19 by President Heber J. Grant. And within a month, local residents had donated $125,000, which would be more than $2 million today.
My gosh.
Yeah. So they were ready.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. Instead of an open house, the church led tours through the temple during the last 2 years of its construction. So it's like you're walking through a construction site. And the open house started in 1925 and continued through until 1927. They say 200,000 people toured the building during this time.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Yeah. The architects are Ram Hansen and Don Carlos Young Jr.
Okay.
They were selected to design it after they won a competition. They said they put it up for competition amongst a couple of design firms, and they won.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a unique temple. I mean, it's just a box, right? But it's got all these details. The bas relief, as you say, around the top this is done by Torleif Knappost. He did a lot of the design and art in Cardston, and he also helped in Hawaii.
Oh, in the Laie temple.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
And so he did the baptismal font here, and he did those bas reliefs. I don't know. They're like sculptural murals again. He's good at those kind of thing that he's done in these other temples. And it was on these panels are Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, Mexicans, pioneers traveling to the Western United States, Southern Europeans, Central Europeans, Scandinavians, and people from the British Isles. It was just like people traveling to temples. One thing that I read was that the Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders don't look like they're traveling because they had their temple. Like the Hawaiian temple was done, so it's like they had it. They were just like in their panel, they're just like living, and the rest of the panels they're like traveling.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's kind of a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
I love the oxen in this one. They're so unique. I get kind of excited by the different oxen that we're seeing. They have like this patchwork quality to them that's really interesting, and like you said, very Art Deco down there. It's really pretty. And it said one of the horns, for some reason, is crooked.
Yes.
One of the oxen.
Yeah, that's the veteran youth who had already been there. That was part of what they did for first timers, is they'd be like, I want to show you, and they'd bring you around to show you the oxen that had the crooked horn. And I don't know if that, I mean, heck, it probably was intentional, but another Easter egg, like you say, and it was part of this process of being like, let me show you this cool thing. Let me show you this cool thing.
They actually don't have a statement from the artist about why he did it that way, but they say, like, it shows that we're mortal and we make mistakes and it's okay. So I don't know why, but it's cool. I love the cool different takes on that all these artists do.
Oh, totally.
And then, okay, so inside, when you walk in the building, I haven't been there. Well, no, I have been there, but I didn't know this at the time. When you walk in, you see a straight line up the stairs to the door of the celestial room.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is intentional to be like, that's the goal. That's where you're aiming. And then you have to go around. It's a progressive style endowment where you go from room to room.
Yeah.
And then you end up there, but not through that door. But then when you come out that door to come back down.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And the murals in this temple, I got to tell you, they might have more murals than any other temple.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they are huge. They're huge and they're unique and just beautiful.
Yeah.
Even in the hallway, there's a giant mural of Joseph and Hiram preaching to the Native Americans.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, which, I don't know, that's
it's
not
really
something I see in other places.
Yeah, well, I'm saying as things kind of became more standardized in temple construction, I feel like it fell to other elements of the temple to be more, I mean, to kind of differentiate themselves. But in the early days of the church, I feel like they leaned right into that idea of being like, this is ours, this is supposed to represent our space in this area, which you still see. I mean, like, I'm in the San Antonio Temple District, and the first room of the endowment really is just, it's hill country, Texas, exactly. And it pleases me so much. And same, I've been to the Manhattan Temple, and it's totally like there are elements interiorly that look like brownstones in Manhattan, like the brownstone columns, but and also like kind of the vegetation of like original New York is what you see on the walls. Like, it's very, like, the light does not filter strongly through, the colors are really dark and muted. It's something that I find so lovely. Going back to the crumpled horn or whatever I always call it the crumpled horn because it's like the old, it's like the old rhyme, here's the cow with the crumpled horn. The thing that's so cool, never mind. Sorry, you're going to have to bleep this out because this is about the Snowflake Temple. But yeah, the same thing about the little variations are something that I find just so endearing about the Mesa Temple. And going into the old endowment rooms, because I think that they've updated it to where there's not quite so much progression to accommodate the number of saints that were coming through and still are. This is something I need to address, is that the Mesa Temple District used to be like one of the biggest in the world because well, it was all of South America. Yeah, exactly. It went down to the southernmost tip of Chile. It went up into Nevada. It went over and took in like a good chunk of Texas. I mean, like, it's huge, humongous. And back when my father-in-law was a kid, saints would come from South America to get their temple work done. And so this was not like youth going on a temple trip. This was like families doing their one and only temple trip. Yeah. And they would save and scrimp, and they would ride on buses for days to get to the Mesa Temple. So they'd be driving up from like El Salvador and Bolivia and Chile. And so they had these huge dorms that were off like 1 block away from the temple. There were these squat brick sculptures, and they had like shower rooms and bunk beds and whatever. My father-in-law, Jim Stradling's mother, Donna Stradling, may she rest in peace, fabulous woman, fearless. But one of her responsibilities as the Relief Society president at the time was to make sure that saints getting off of that bus had a hot meal to eat, because some of them had been driving for days. And so she was already used to cooking for a large family, whatever. But she was like, okay, but I can't feed 100 people, right? I can feed 30, but I can't feed 100. And so she would go around to the neighbors and be like, listen, we have a bus coming in of saints to go to the temple at whatever time o'clock or on this day of the week. And I need you to bring over enough food for 15 people or 30 people or whatever. Non-Mormon members and non-members. She was knocking on doors and being like, I need you to show up at this time with this much food. And there were ladies like, Donna, I'm not even Mormon. And she's like, it doesn't matter. Those people need to be fed. And they were like, I mean, you're right. Okay. And they would just show up, like these ladies in their house dresses with tubs of food, just like show up, and they're dishing it out for these saints who are coming in the door. And it moves me so deeply to think of that, because I'm like, I don't know the scripture by heart, but this is the element of pure Christianity, right?
Yeah.
Is feeding people who need it and showing up with just what you have. I don't know. It's just,
I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a good story. That's such a good tradition. And just like example.
Yeah, I agree.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, the temple was dedicated in 1927 by Heber J. Grant. It was a 4-day event, and the newspapers reported saying that 5,000 of the faith and 5,000 of the friendly attended the first day's gathering, and the second day, a choir of 300 Arizonans, including Native Americans and Hispanics, gave a public concert on the temple roof of simple thanks and praise. That's unique. That's a unique little... Yeah. Also, this was the first, we've talked about the international appeal of this temple, but they were the first ones to have it in 2 languages. So Spanish was added. Spanish was added in 1945, and they were the first ones to do a different language.
That's incredible.
And the temple workers learned Spanish. It's not like they called people that knew Spanish, but the temple workers that were there just learned it so that they could help people.
That's amazing.
Have you done the Easter pageant?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so in one of the times I was living in Mesa, my husband, Adam, had started to grow his hair out, and he just missed the auditions by this much. And didn't know, we didn't really know it was an option. And somebody was like, oh, you should have auditioned. They would have cast you as Jesus. And he was like, I mean, that would be cool, but why me? And they're like, you have long hair. You're churchy.
That's all. That's the only
you're tall. Yeah, seriously. They're like, you're tall. It would have been a shoo-in. Yeah. Years later, I will say they cast my brother-in-law as Jesus in the last Hill Cumorah pageant for the same reason, because he was tall and he had a beard. Yeah. And they were like, done. So, but yeah, the Easter pageant was something that was it was like, yes, it's showmanship. It's a little bit of everything. It's such a pull from the local community to be like, we're going to do the thing. And then there are young women who represent like the 10 wise and the 10 foolish virgins, and there's a whole like dance routine that's coordinated. So they pull from local talent to do that. But yeah, it's everything at some point. I think I saw it live earlier on, but by the time I was an adult and came back, everything's pre-recorded. And so people are just kind of pantomiming the actions and kind of taking care of things. But it really was kind of a fascinating pageant in that the stage was built, and the stage is like slowly constructed over time. Like kind of as soon as they pull the Christmas lights down, they start kind of laying the groundwork for that. And the Christmas lights are huge. I mean, like every year they have, it's to rival Salt Lake. Like they're wrapping all these palm trees, and they have little lights that have chili peppers on them that are like hanging, it's totally like leaning into the Southwestern culture. The Mesa Temple is unafraid to be exactly what it is, and I love it for that. Yeah. So anyways, but so they're slowly constructing the Easter pageant, kind of prepping, and then they put the stage up. But the other part of it that's cool is that there's a part where it goes through Christ's life and ministry, where he actually like is baptized. And from what I remember, I think it was actually like a small font that they like submerged him in, because I remember him coming out of the water, and I was like, there's water in there.
He's wet.
Yeah. Wow. Like seriously, tens of thousands of people go to this. Like the lawn is shot to heck.
I saw a picture of the setup, like even just a small picture of the setup, and it was like, this is a huge lawn, and it's like, it's very intentional. The temple's on like 20 acres, and so at least half of that must be for the audience space.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised if they totally have a full lawn regimen before then, because they have irrigation on the lawn, but it's like that lawn has to be ready and sturdy enough to accommodate the huge audience that then goes and sets up chairs and sits on it and tracks through it. Yeah, because it's pretty, it's pretty well damaged after. And
Arizona lawn is fragile anyway.
It's a delicate ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, they have two reflecting pools and just gorgeous trees, and everything's so pretty on the grounds.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, you come back when I relocate. You come
Yes.
back, we'll go trek down there together and we'll just we'll find some old timers and
Yeah,
say,
we'll do a
"Tell us your
tour.
tales." Yeah, totally.
Yes. Okay, well, I want to talk about nicknames for this temple because it was called the Arizona Temple. That
Yeah.
was its official name until 1999. Now it's the Mesa Arizona Temple,
Yes.
the Lamanite Temple, and somebody called it a sermon in stone as you look at it from the skyline.
Fascinating.
But I still like everyone calls it the Mesa Temple. Like that's even the website is the mesatemple.org. That's the website for the visitor center.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nickname because it's the Mesa Arizona Temple.
Right.
So it's interesting. They did this new naming convention in 1999 where it was city, state of every temple except Provo City Center and Salt Lake.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it feels like Mesa could have been an exception. But maybe people don't know where Mesa is. It's fine.
I mean, I don't know. Mormondom is so small, and people say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "I'm from Arizona," and they say, "Where?" They say, "Oh, it's hot there, isn't it?" And I was like, "Well, and I always say,
Not in the mountains.
"Yeah, not in the mountains." And they say, and I'm like, "Well, I used to live in Mesa," and if they're Mormon adjacent at all, they're like, "I know Mesa." And then if I say Snowflake, if they're super Mormon adjacent, they go, "I know where Snowflake is," and I'm like, "I'm in the heathen city to the south, Sholo." And they say, "Oh, okay." But yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's fun to narrow it down by temple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Let me do a little quote from the dedicatory prayer where he talks about the people of Arizona. Thy people who have settled in this state, the officers thereof, we pray thee to bless the governor of the state and all who are charged with the administration of the affairs thereof, and may the people who dwell there be blessed and prospered of thee in righteousness. So it's mostly like thanking the pioneers and everybody that worked so hard to make it livable down there, but then just also a blessing on them for their righteousness, their accountability there.
It's so beautiful because my earlier ancestors would ride what they called the honeymoon trail.
Yeah.
Yep. From northern Arizona. You probably already talked about that in Manti or something, right?
Well, it's from St. George to Arizona.
That's right.
They called it the honeymoon trail because everybody went up to get back married in St. George.
Exactly. Yeah, my earlier ancestors drove the honeymoon trail in, horse and wagon and would stay with friends, whatever, on the way to go to get sealed in St. George. And then when they constructed Mesa, getting to the temple still was such a feat because the state highways, the first one that really connected northern Arizona to Phoenix was the Highway 60, and it goes through the Salt River Canyon, which is a terrifying set of switchbacks. It descends 2,200 feet and then straight back up. It's so, there are so many, I've heard this second or third hand, or maybe it was off the internet, but people who actually go down to the bottom of the canyon, it's just littered with cars because there's so many people who have died on that road.
No,
so
thank
many.
you.
Yeah. It's so driving that road in a horse and buggy and then an early car and whatever to go down to the temple and then come back was it just took days, it was such a sacrifice. But my ancestors were like, listen, 200 miles versus, 400, I guess, to St. George. They're like, we'll take it.
Wow.
But yeah, just it's the humility when you're reading that dedicatory prayer, it really sits heavy on my heart with, I feel gratitude and sorrow for what my ancestors went through, the sacrifices that they made that I tend to take for granted. I don't think my ancestors are like, look at that little dummy, look at that weenie, I think they're happy and grateful for me and the comforts that I have and the opportunities I've had. But every once in a while, I think that they appreciate that I can see what they went through. Because my own grandparents, my dad's parents served in the Mesa Temple for years. They would totally just winter.
Really?
They would winter down at, what's it called? It was called the Copper Ridge Motel or something like that, an RV park,
wow.
2 blocks away. And they lived in this just little single wide trailer. It was maybe 10 feet wide, if that.
Trailers then were not the palaces they are today.
No, like
It was a place to sleep,
like,
to warm up some water.
Totally. It was like maybe 10 by 20 and they had like rosemary or thyme growing out the front, and it would get hot, and the smell of like hot rosemary and hot thyme always makes me think, like when I'm cooking, it always makes me think of their place in that motel. But yeah, they'd go serve, and then they'd walk to the Dairy Queen that was just the next block over and like get a treat, and then they'd go home. But for years they just loved it. Like they were like, this is what we do.
My grandpa served in the Provo Rock Canyon Temple. Yeah. I don't know what, but after each of his shifts, they say he would stop at Ripple's and get a milkshake on the way home.
Smart man. I love it.
We're all so connected, you and me.
I know, it's so true.
I have another. This is a segment from the rededication, Spencer W. Kimball, in 1975.
Yeah.
Just another little one. He says, "We are grateful, our Father, that in these years have come to this temple numerous of thy beloved Indian people of many tribes in their newly discovered way of life. Many children of Lehi have traveled long distances from other lands at great expense and sacrifice, especially in the borders of Old Mexico, and numerous families have been welded together for eternity." Nice. He's an Arizonan.
He is. Yeah, he's totally from Safford. Or no, maybe it's Thatcher. I think he's from Thatcher, but yeah, not very far.
Yeah, so I think that's sweet that he got to do the rededication, and he recognized what was going on in that temple. So I love the native,
like the Hispanic folks who lived locally. Yeah, totally.
Even from South.
And from, totally. Like a huge sacrifice. They made huge sacrifices, not just to come and go to the temple, but also in some cases, like to be accepted in their local faith communities. They went through a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, huge.
Yep, Native members and Hispanic members in Arizona specifically had to live through a lot.
Yeah.
And they
had to redo their lives, essentially, rebuild.
No, it's true. I just I appreciate that he was recognizing the sacrifices of that community because it was, of those communities, because it was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot.
So for that renovation, they closed in February 1974 for extensive remodeling. They said an expansion of 17,000 square feet to add ordinance rooms and dressing rooms. They put in the new technology for the video and a new entrance.
Yeah.
And then they chose at that time to change the structure and to be in one room, and the murals were taken down.
That is true.
They had 200,000 people come through the open house. I think this is the first time they did an open house after a renovation.
Well, okay.
It says including 527 ministers of other churches.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah.
They also worked on a new visitor center at this time, and they've done it again since then, but their visitor center is a big deal.
It's the best. I've seen so many, and Mesa, for some reason, leaned really heavily into making their... I think some part of it, too, was because the nature of the temple, the nature of the Mesa Temple accommodating so many saints coming from so far, that they were the first visitor center I ever saw that really had kids-centered spaces. Oh. Yeah, because there were so many of us. And we had to do the same thing. If our parents were going to the temple, like sometimes we were just hanging with friends and family and whatever, but sometimes we were just chilling in the visitor center for hours waiting for them to get out of the
Wow.
And so they'd have little viewing rooms where they would put on church videos, or they would take you on tours around, and they had like the big Christus statue where they kind of do this recording of like, scripture that Christ said in the New Testament. And yeah, so it really, like, I think that Mesa never escaped its roots in that way, where it was totally like, people come from a long way to get here, and so we need to make them comfortable. And so they did. Like,
yeah,
that's
a good point. It's probably the first, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe the first visitor center that has its own website.
I did not know that, but I love it.
Yeah, it's mesatemple.org or something, and I was like, wow, they are really going all out. They are doing the thing.
Yeah.
And then so they rededicated in 1975. That was President Kimball. And then they closed it. Well, in 1991, the preserved sections of the original murals were sent back to the temple for reinstallation.
Okay.
Only one wall in each room could be restored, and then they kind of filled in the rest. And they had added an ordinance room, and so they used parts of a mural from another room to fill it in. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that makes sense from what I saw finally going as an endowed member, that they were original murals, but they were like that just on one wall and the rest of it was white. So,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
Yeah. So then they closed again for another renovation more recently, 2018, 2.5 years, new all of the electrical, mechanical stuff. But then the interior improvements consistent with the historical character of the building. So replacements of the furniture and finishes, preservation of the historic murals, and an overhaul of the grounds. But it's like they went back to the original Art Deco vibe, which
Love
I
it.
really appreciate. As they're doing these renovations again, I'm like, yes. Like the Salt Lake, the pictures of what Salt Lake's going to look like is so beautiful.
Yeah,
St. George and Manti have been so beautiful.
totally.
And look, I mean, I talk about this every episode, but Logan's next, and I want to see it.
Are
I
you
want to see it then.
so good?
I'm so excited. I don't know why, but I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I really appreciate that they've leaned into that, because I get, because the Mesa, I will say that I feel like the Mesa Temple has had to be renovated more often than some of the others, because like Washington D.C. I feel like was on a similar schedule where it really was the hub for so many saints in New England and such that they had a
Post.
exactly because DC, I can't remember when they were dedicated in like the 80s. Sorry.
I mean, we'll get there someday.
Yeah. Anyways, doesn't matter. But Mesa was like that in where it was a hub,
Yeah.
And so I remember I went to clean the Mesa Temple once on a weeknight, and I remember hearing from one of the old timers who'd heard it from somebody else. So who knows? This is probably just faith inspired. It's not even a faith inspiring rumor. It's just to say they had to pull up and replace carpets in the Mesa Temple like often because of foot traffic. Yeah. And so they would do that, though. Sometimes they would do quick reinstallations. From what I remember, it was quick reinstallations over like Christmas break, whatever.
Just quick fixes. Yeah.
Exactly. But they had to replace carpets often because of foot traffic, and it was a thing. It was a to-do.
Yeah. And nowadays there are 6 operating temples in Arizona, and 2 are under construction.
I forget where those are. The ones in construction.
I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Well, the ones that are operating are Snowflake, Gila Valley, Tucson, Gilbert, and then Yuma and Queen Creek.
That's right. Yuma got a temple. Announced. I'm so glad that they're being constructed, because Saints in Yuma, oh my gosh, that's another outpost where they had to travel so far to get anywhere, because they either had to go to Mesa and they would have had to go up.
Or Tijuana.
Yeah, I was like Tijuana. Yeah, Tijuana would have been in the early aughts, I think, but before then they would have had to go up into LA. So I think Mesa must have been closer than that, but like not by much,
Yeah. So far, any other good stories that you've got?
I just feel a lot of gratitude for my ancestors. This is something that I tend to roll my eyes at a little bit, and this, we've talked about this for years, where I get a little eye rolly when people stand up and bear testimony of their pioneer ancestry, because I'm like, why are you bragging on this? Like what, like literally, like what does it matter? Oh, and the worst are the name droppers being like, I'm so-and-so's great grandson, and I'm like, who cares? But it's because I'm looking at it through the lens of like these little people that I came from, who sacrificed a lot and had very little say, like the women, especially in my ancestry, who just, and in my husband's ancestry too, right, who, like, I don't know how often his grandma was going to the temple, but how often was she cooking for saints that were coming in, right? Like that level of sacrifice. And I'm not saying this to downplay the sacrifices that the men made in any of our families, but I'm saying I feel like these women were in, I want to say, like a uniquely humbling position, for better or for worse, to serve in this way. And so I'd like to give them their laurels, right? Because they were doing the work of supporting, of scrimping and saving. The sister you're talking about who gave $5 for a house of the Lord in Arizona, prescient, or maybe it was just blind hope that we would get one at some point,
Yeah.
Who knows how many women were doing that exact same type of work and giving up those same type of prayers all over the state and in the various native tribes, etc. And the Hispanic communities, oftentimes Hispanic communities and white communities had a lot of tension between them. They fought and and things were hard, and I can't speak to it, but I'm sure that there's so many stories from people talking about this extra layer of sacrifice that like non-white saints had to make to join these faith communities as well. And I know it, that there were people who opened their hearts and homes to them and made it, and did the work of pure Christianity. But I'm just like, my heart is so full with like a lot of thanks and a lot of gratitude and finally some humility to say, I'm so grateful for my pioneer ancestors, those folks who went through so much and gave up so much to invest in this cause that they believed in, to where they would go without.
Yeah. And they laid the groundwork for us.
They did.
And I think they're so happy that, yes.
Yeah, so I could eat ponchos as a 12-year-old.
Ponchos. Unlimited. Like all you can eat Mexican food.
I know.
That's the thing.
Magical.
Thank you so much. You have crushed it today.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you did this with me.
Oh, Tony, it was the best. And I seriously am so happy that you wanted to go through with this, etc. And I'm so delighted that you asked me. Like, I seriously, I feel so honored because I'm a person who loves the Mesa Temple so much and wants to talk to people about it. And I will corner folks and talk about the huge Mesa Temple district, and their eyes either glaze over or they're like filled with a little bit of fear because I'm like way too intense about it. And I'm like, don't you understand? It's sacrifice across thousands of miles. Like people coming, people going, people feeding people when they get there, and not to mention my own ancestors braving this drive of death down the Salt River Canyon just to worship at the altar.
Yeah.
I can't get over it. And I think I'm not supposed to. So to all of those I'm subjected to my Mesa Temple talk. And to the Mesa Temple actual experts who are going to listen to this and say, she got it all wrong. Yes, no problem.
At least we're talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, at least we're talking about it, right?
I love it. We'll have you back for Snowflake, for sure.
Oh, yeah. My gosh. Can't wait.
I'm going to read some just stats and facts. Announcement was October 1919. Site was dedicated November 1921 by Heber J. Grant. Mm-hmm. Groundbreaking was April 1922 by Heber J. Grant. They really just dragged this out. Dedication was October 1927, Heber J. Grant. And then the rededication, April 1975 by Spencer W. Kimball. Mm-hmm. Rededicated 2021 by Dallin H. Oaks. It's on 20 acres, which I think is huge.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. 4 instruction rooms. It is progressive. 6 ceiling rooms and 1 baptistry. Originally, it was 75,000 square feet, and currently it's almost 114,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh! I haven't been back since the rededication, so I've got that on my to-do list. No joking. Yeah.
They like to see me.
Make it a thing.
Yes, they like to put a lot of stuff underground nowadays. It's 53 feet tall, which is pretty good.
Yeah, 2 stories. Yeah.
I have another fun fact.
Yeah, ready.
This is where President Uchtdorf got his temple endowment.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It isn't it?
It is.
Well, that's all I have for the Mesa Arizona Temple. I have been there to visit, but I can't remember much. If you have some great stories about this or another temple, please share it with us on our Instagram at Every Temple Podcast or on our Facebook. Thank you for being with us as we discuss the Mesa Arizona Temple. If you want to know more about why we build temples and the role they play in our religion, please visit churchofjesuschrist.org/temples. We are not sponsored by or affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.